Hey, let's pursue God. Lindsay here.
And Hillary.
And we are doing a dream interpretation this week.
Whose dream, Lindsay? Yours or mine? Yours or mine?
Mine. We've talked about before how it's challenging to choose a dream that's recent because you don't know what you're going to bump into, where that click of, oh, I know what God's talking to me about is going to happen. And then can you actually continue interpreting, or is it now too personal of a situation? So we've been going.
Watch the Charity Berkler Sean Bolt's video.
Right.
He goes to his dream live and he's like, oh.
Charity Berkler Kayumbe is one of the major biblical dream interpretation people that we follow and have learned from. And she was on with Sean Bowles earlier this year or late last year?
Late last year, I want to say.
Right. Okay. Late last year, we think, but it could have been early this year. And they ended up interpreting one of his dreams live, and you see the click, like... And he realizes, I cannot publicly share what's happening anymore. And we've had those moments enough on video where we know better than that now. And so we're going to be daring, but we're going to be daring circa the past. Like we're going back to 2019. Our goal is to do pre-COVID because I don't know. I think my dreams got a little weird during COVID for a bit.
I don't know. We haven't looked at them closely, so who knows? Maybe we'll look at them and be like, oh.
If only because like so many transitions happened in my life shortly after COVID. I was in Nicaragua when everything started shutting down in the US.
Right.
And so I just had one transition and then a rest and then more transitions, and so eventually we'll look at it, but we've decided pre-COVID
to start.
And we tried a different dream of mine initially.
Right.
And we never got that click that we talk about, that aha moment. I know where this fits. I know the now overlay for it. Right. And that first dream, we never got the click. We did get some ground on it though. And we did find things super curious and interesting and to ponder. We just never had the click. And so we decided to see, could we find another one? This dream here.
And we did.
quick click. So I'm going to put it up on the screen here. I had this dream in July 12th of 2019. So at this point in my life, I had just moved out of the state of Alaska down into Tennessee. We knew 0 people in the state of Tennessee. That's how many people we knew. Major change, trusting God.
Right.
Our whole family went, my husband and my 4 kids and I. We sold everything. We moved in 13 large Tupperwares and a dog. And we took our dog. And we knew nobody. And the school wasn't starting till September. So we had several months to kind of find a groove. Where do you go and do your grocery shopping? What does the church feel like on a Sunday? We took the new members class. So we'd only been in Tennessee, though, at the point of this dream, almost 2 weeks, not quite.
And how good was God during that time for our work? We were slammed. We had
so when we
work that week, those months.
When we did Hillary's live dream interpretation from 2019, before we talked about how she transitioned into doing more of my job, more of the upfront salesperson job. And God was so good to us during this time. I think at this point, we still weren't horrifically busy, but we were consistent.
We were pretty busy. At one point during those couple months, we had 20 files.
Yeah, which in my industry is not an overwhelming amount, but it's a really good clip. It's your every day is busy.
Yeah.
So I'd almost been there for 2 weeks. I think we'd gone to the church once. We hadn't developed community. really had a lot of questions about, are we going to stay more than a year? Maybe we'll live here forever. It's so new. It's so fresh. We could stay forever. The new. So here's the dream. I'm driving to the airport and Sean Bowles passes me because he is speeding. Shame on you, sir. And I think maybe I'll see him again. And when I get to the airport, it's set up like the Diamond Center Mall in Anchorage. And I'm thinking, am I here to watch a movie? Like, what am I here for? What am I doing here? And then all of a sudden the building gets evacuated. And I'm getting near an escalator. And there's this small kid who's limping, and I have a word of knowledge about his knee. And so I bend down to pray for the knee, and it causes this huge pileup on the escalator because we're like at the top where you get in, and we're not moving, and blah, blah, blah. Huge pileup on the escalator. And only the way a dream can make it happen. You know what I mean? Like, this wouldn't happen in real waking life, but in a dream, huge pileup. And the pileup causes Sean Bowles to look over, and he smiles really kindly, and he comes on over and gets on, and he puts his hand on the kid's knee and says, "Be healed." And then he looks over and he goes, "Hi, Lindsay." And he moves on. And I think he knows my name. And the rest of the dream, I should have taken the photo of Sean Bowles and I and like popped it on the screen right here.
Next Sean Bowles stream.
Next Sean Bowles stream, you guys. And the rest of the dream is figuring out if we need to just leave the mall or just stay on the first floor, like the starting area.
So Liz, Sean Bowles, he's probably Sean Bowles, right?
Right. Is this a literal dream? Are there literal things in here? Ooh, such a great question. And we have some different groups that we love to watch, you guys, and start wonderful conversations with Hillary and I. And one of them did dream interpretation this week. And we listened to them talk about their version of literal, symbolic, and prophetic. And we thought, we're going to throw those three categories into this dream interpretation and give our view on literal, symbolic, and prophetic, because they're important things to understand and grasp when you're looking at a dream.
Especially because when they were saying them, they seemed to be a bit confused because they were interpreting prophetic as literal, but they were symbols in the dreams. So they were specifically using dreams from the Bible of like Joseph and his 12 brothers, the 12 shears bowing down to him and saying that's a literal dream. But our people sheaves of wheat.
Right. So I think what would help us is understanding literal. Literal means, hold on, I'm looking it up. Taking words in their usual or most basic sense without metaphor or allegory, or representing the exact circumstances.
Right.
So
you can't see that in the Bible, though. Is like, for instance, when Joseph, the other Joseph, Jesus's father, has a dream, and the angel says, "Mary, Mary," literally.
Oh, right, Mary, Mary. I was like, Mary, Mary, quite contrary.
Mary, Joseph.
Right.
Or even go take your child and go to Egypt.
Right. Those are examples of literal dreams. Some people might call them encounters of the night,
but they are dreams.
But that's a literal portion. Yeah. I had a prophetic, and now time frame prophetic symbolic dream back in 2013. It was back in 13. But there was one part of the dream that was literal. So because it was now prophetic, but just like 2 weeks in the future, I didn't have quite a grid. But in the dream, I knew I do not go back into the building until this sound happens.
Yeah.
And so I knew something was getting ready to happen. I knew it wasn't good. I knew because of the symbols what it was talking about. But nothing had happened in the natural to make me understand, but I knew we weren't to go into that building until I heard a certain sound. I didn't know if I was going to hear it in the physical or in the supernatural, but I knew in the dream, you do not go back into that building until you hear the sound. And so until I hear the sound in my literal life, like it literally happened in the dream, I will not go back in. And it protected, listening to that dream and that literal part protected my family from so much emotional hurt in that time. So you can have a prophetic dream, you can have a symbolic dream and still have a literal piece to it. Right. So that was not an encounter of the night, like the biblical examples.
Dream that prophetically happens, it's not a literal dream.
Right.
Just because something happens doesn't mean it's literally what happened in the dream.
In the dream that we're looking at from 2019, what is the literal? 0 things in that dream are literal. What?
You
0 things.
Call you by name?
Shambles does not know my name. Someday that might change. I've met him all of once. I think I scared him. He did like a quick like spirit check to make sure I wasn't some crazy stalker woman. And that was my impression of what happened. Cause I was at an event he did in the Spokane healing rooms. And I just was like, oh, if I don't get a picture with him, or at least ask to get a picture with him, I'm going to kick myself forever. And so I just walked up after the session and was like, hey, can I get a picture with you? And he does this quick like check. If you've never followed him, he has some wild stories from his single year of finding women in his hotel rooms.
Oh, poor man.
So poor guy does a quick check. Apparently I'm normal enough. Like and then in the selfie, I am so concerned that I'm going to close my eyes or something that I'm like, it's so bad. But I got a picture with Shambles. So he does not know my name. We don't live in the same city. So we're not going to be driving down the road. I've never seen him at the Diamond Center or an escalator. This is not there. I don't have a word of knowledge for someone with a hurt knee. Right. I don't know that the Diamond Center is like an airport or vice versa.
Right.
These are not literal factors from my dream.
But if you take the symbolic nature of them.
Right. So if I look at it as symbols, if I look at the components and action in my dreams as symbols, there were so many things that overlaid with what was happening in my life. Yeah. One of the biggest symbols is Shambles. So he's not literally himself. So what is he? Well, because of other dreams I have had from this time era, I know that he represents either God moving in the spirit or an angelic force. Because when he shows up in my dreams, a lot of times it's talking to me about prophecy or word of knowledge shows up. And so I just know he's not the Holy Spirit. He's not the Holy Spirit. And I know that. I can't explain why I know it. I just know in my knower that he's not the Holy Spirit, but he is like a supernatural release, or he is some sort of angelic force. And the Diamond Center Airport is the school that I was at. Yep, so I had many dreams also from that time era where I knew that the Diamond Center represented to the school of supernatural life that I'd be at. And it's an airport because it's a taking off place for all these different students that are coming from all over the world to learn and grow.
Just like you see in the ball.
Right. And this symbolic, there was this desire to pray for people in the dream. And I bring this up in the prophetic too, but I'll talk about it here. When I was at the school, and remember when I had this dream, the school hadn't started yet. So this is like a symbol, but it's also a prophetic symbol. So you'll see that it's falling in both of these categories. When I was at the school, I would have all these different receptions of what was going on in people's lives. Oh, they're hurt. They're feeling anxious. They have this. They have a mother wound. They have And I would want to lean into that or pray for these people. And so we see that there's a kid whose knee is hurt, and I have this word of knowledge. I have knowledge that they have something that's holding them back in life, that's stopping them from moving forward the way they would. So we see that symbol. So what is the prophetic in this dream?
Well, I think that, well, I know.
Right. And it's listed on the screen.
That Sean Bolt went ahead of you as well.
Right.
Like that entity went ahead of you. He was speeding ahead of you.
Right. So much of this dream is God telling me I've made a way. I've made a path for you. Yep. And none of it is going to catch me by surprise. And in areas where you may feel like you're not getting to do what you know needs to be done, I have it covered. And really a lot of my time at that school wasn't necessarily learning the curriculum, but learning how I don't have to do all the things that my spiritual receptions, I don't have to take care of everything that my spiritual receptions are informing me about. So just because I'm made aware of something, I'm God's friend. He's going to talk to me about all these things. But it doesn't mean it's mine to solve. It's his. It is his heart. And he's just showing me things. And also I'm a spirit being walking through a spiritual world. And honestly, in a school where people are going and doing a lot of heart work and inner healing, they're like, I don't know how to explain this. If you're someone who senses a lot in the environment, like emotionally, or even like through touch, you'll understand what I'm saying. But when people are going through big inner healing, I'm like, yes, but all my receptions are like, oh, you're vomiting on me. So like you put it out there. So sometimes it's just, I'm a spirit being walking through a spirit world, and you're putting your stuff out there, and I'm in the same space as you. But the other cool thing is that God knew that there'd be an evacuation of the place that I was at, and I would need to leave it. So our first year of school, I was on mission with the school in Nicaragua when they started shutting the borders down to the United States for COVID. And when I came back, the school had shut its doors. And they had just said, we don't know if we're reopening. We don't know, blah, blah, blah. If you're a foreign national, like you're in the United States and it's not your home country, we recommend you go home. They evacuated their school. They were not going to do in person, even though the state as a whole was allowing for things like that. They were not comfortable with it, and they evacuated the school. And here it is. Right. And they continued, but it went online. So, but physically you weren't going to be there anymore. And it left a lot of questions and a lot of things undone. And really made us have to decide, what are we going to do? We had planned on being here 2 to 3 years in Tennessee. What are we going to do? Are we going to leave and go home to Alaska? Or are we going to stay and not know if they're ever going to open back up the school and just start ground floor with this church and building in relationship with this church? And God in this dream was showing me all ahead of time, like, I know what's coming up ahead, and I have already provided in the midst of it. So I love that in the midst of this slide. Here we covered a lot of these symbols already, but Sean Bowles is an angelic host sent ahead, knows me, and ministers to the things I notice. So this is God saying, hey, it's not you. It's not all about you. I've already taken care of these people that you're noticing all these things about. And that was a huge learning point for me, you guys, during that year that I was there. The airport of the Diamond Center was the school. Evacuation was COVID. Closing, leave, or stay on the first floor was kind of like, do we stay here? Do we leave? So we covered that.
First floor.
Right. First year, do we right. Because we at that point could have just left and gone back to Alaska and done the school remotely, even other than
They
we were
didn't know what
fixing
they
a
were going to
house
do
there.
in
Right.
2020, 2021.
They did not. Right. And we ended up not continuing and doing the next year. So we stayed in Tennessee another year, but we did not do the school that next year. Hillary did.
I did. Me and Trevor did first year.
My favorite part of this dream isn't any of the stuff I have shared at all. You know, when I started working through this dream, I was like, oh Lord, like this is great information. And you know, you providing ahead of time is wonderful, but like what's your good in this dream for me? But before I go there, do you have questions?
No, I think you've covered it real well. I feel like the symbols no more have popped out to me additionally.
So it was that question, like, God, what's your good for me?
Yeah.
In this
Again,
dream?
from the book we just finished.
Mm-hmm. And God's good is that line where I go, oh, he knows my name. Aww. He knows me. He knows exactly where I am. He knows exactly what I need in this circumstance. And he has made a way. And he's okay with all the questions. And he's okay with any hesitation. And he's okay with what's happening. And he knows me. And it just has such a deep, like, heart feel for me of like, oh, you care. And we miss it so often, the level at which you care. And I think that was my big, like, oh, this is the good. Going back from this dream is you know my name, you know my every circumstance. And that's something having gone back to the dream, are even pulling into today at this point in time.
Very timeless of God. I mean, it was relevant at the moment you had the dream. It was relevant when the conditions of the dream happened, and it's still relevant today.
Right. Now, do you remember us working through that dream at all in that time?
You know, a lot was going on during that time. You were having, if I remember correctly, you were having a lot of dreams in 2019 before the school started.
Right. So I had a lot of dreams before I left. I had some pretty awesome dreams before I left. And then I had quite a few when I got there. And honestly, you guys, one of the reasons I think Sean Bowles was angelic being sent ahead is I had a ton of angelic encounters in my waking that would bridge into just waking up time. When I lived in that house in Tennessee, I had some pretty intense angelic encounters. Mm. So Sean Bowles being angelic, that also like makes sense because of what happened to me that during that period of living in Tennessee.
And you got the click. I mean, the thing is once you get the click of your dreams, it doesn't matter what other people say necessarily, although it's kind and sometimes there's layers. You know, like this is what it is. Like
right.
This is what it is.
Ta-da! That's what it is. Yeah, it's one of those things, like Hillary says, once you know, it's pretty hard to be like, oh, it could be something else though.
Right.
You get pretty settled into the firmness of, no, I know, and the spirit in me knows. Right. And we are both resonating at the same frequency right now on this. So I think that's great. I'm curious if we're going to get someone who we know who wants to submit a dream from a couple of years ago. We'd work with them on it off air for the next time, but it's going to be a couple of weeks before we do another dream interpretation video to hear what God has to say to you while you were sleeping.
Literal, symbolic, and prophetic.
Right. The difference between the three. Literal is literal. Symbolic is
still be prophetic.
Symbolic.
Symbolic.
Right. The challenge, I think, of taking a current dream is figuring out the prophetic, because most of the time the prophetic is going to be about the future, and it could be the near future or the far future.
Right.
And you just don't know till you know. You know,
I mean,
when
sometimes this isn't happening right now, so I think it's going to be in the future.
It's true. You had a dream last night, and we worked through it. a little, and I used a lot of Murray's pondering points that he suggests in his book with Hillary of, oh, is there a place where you're asking a question, like the question in the dream? Is there a place where you're experiencing in your waking life where you're experiencing a situation where there's a transition and an opportunity, and she's going, no, you know,
I'm in the middle of a lot of things. There's not a lot of new things right now.
Right. And if there was, I mean, for both of us, we'd be like, oh, I'm a little busy.
Do something new. aren't we doing enough?
And in that moment, I said, it's very possible that this is actually a future dream. And God's kindness in knowing how he made you is that he wanted to put this on your radar to start pondering now. Because if it is a future dream, the time frame in the dream is to move quickly. Right. So getting to ponder now will be helpful. So
the other great thing about that dream is I don't make a lot of decisions. I have a lot of thoughts in the dream, but they all just kind of happen. And I'm like, okay, this happened then.
Right. So when we're looking at a current dream and thinking, gosh, is this prophetic? We start looking for those pondering point overlays of, is there a place in your past or in your current life where you're asking a question like you're asking in this dream? Is there a place in your past or your current life where you're having a situation like this specific part of the situation? And when Hillary, we went through those, all of those were no. And at that point, I'm like, well, then it's very possible this is a future dream that God is giving you prophetically. Why would he do that though? Let's look at the other components of the dream to figure out why he would do that. And then you just hold it in tension.
Yeah. And you just kind of wait for things to look like that. And then you can go back and refer to it. I think it was, what's his name? He talks about Revelation all the time. Mike Bickle. A couple friends of his had some prophetic dreams. And, they said these weird things, these weird sayings. They said 3 really weird things like in a row. And what was interesting about that, actually what you can see in the prophetic in the Bible, is the first one happened relatively quickly after the dream. And it had to do with President Bush and Dan Quayle, his VP. He kept saying the quail is hiding in the bush. He's like, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know. And so the first one happened, and that made him look at the other ones and be like,
what's the rest of this? Yeah.
So then the second one happened. And then he was like, really like, oh, okay, well, what's the third one? And they're still waiting for the third one to happen. But because the first 2 already happened.
They know, right. And that's another way.
Over and over in prophecy in the Bible, there's usually an immediate fulfillment and then a long-term fulfillment. So like when Isaiah talks about the virgin birth, he's actually talking about virgin as in maiden, not virgin as in like virginal.
Right. But then what happened? It was virginal.
But there was actually a birth that happened relatively close to that time period
that
fulfilled that prophecy. That was an immediate fulfillment.
Wow.
And then what do we have? We have Jesus comes through a virgin. Who could have guessed?
So cool.
Not even Isaiah. So those are all, there's an immediate fulfillment and then a bigger fulfillment oftentimes with prophecies in the Bible.
I love it. You know what I realized earlier and didn't get to talk to you about?
What?
Next week, I can't do a video.
Oh, you won't be here.
On Monday. Because I will be in Hawaii.
You won't be here next week.
So next week, we're taking a break, which means the week after that, I think we're moving out of... Right, we're moving... We're not going to distract you. Go be with your kids. I think that means we're moving out of dreams then.
Yeah.
On the next video. So we're going to be going through the gifts, the manifestation of the Holy Spirit gifts. And if you're not familiar with
1 Corinthians 12.
That's exactly it. If you're not familiar, it's the gifts from 1 Corinthians 12. We chose this. We're
going to look at it as the sandwich. So that'll be 12, 13, and 14.
And maybe 15. I am really big at dragging in 15 right now. One of the reasons we chose this is because we love the gifts and we love the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And also because I am teaching a class on the gifts of the Holy Spirit right now. And we thought, hey, why not just, take it and put it here and get it to all you guys out here in YouTube land and on our private Facebook page. I think if you're on our Facebook page and watching this, just a heads up, we're starting to move away from Facebook a little bit. I've been having some problems with them thinking I'm not a real person lately. And
you can see your face though, right?
Ray, look.
I'm real. I'm here.
I'm real.
You need to touch enough stoplights or something, since they're always like, prove you're a real person. Touch all the stoplights.
Right. I really think it's that I refuse to conform to their system the way they want me to, and they're trying to force me into doing it. I'm like,
such a rebel.
Forget it. I'll just go to YouTube. I don't know.
So if you want to join us on YouTube, you can subscribe and follow. Yeah. Ring that bell.
Hit that bell. So you don't. And if you want to hear what my husband has to say, just play our video behind the scenes constantly 24/7 without the sound on. Because after we get 10,000 viewing hours, apparently we can be eligible for payment. I don't know. I was like, I love you, sir. I love you.
We love you. It's sweet.
10,000 viewing hours is a lot. We'll see what happens.
Might need to make a little bit more content.
Right. All right, you guys. We'd love to hear your insights on your dreams that you're having, and we will talk to you in 2 weeks about gifts of the Holy Spirit.